O God, our rock and our Redeemer, may the meditations of my mouth and the knowledge embedded in all of our hearts this evening be pleasing in your sight. Amen. Friends, today we find ourselves embarking on a new series at Old South, as Rachel mentioned earlier. It's one that will carry us through the entire season of Lent. It's one that will stretch us to hear stories from all sorts of corners of the Bible. And it is one that will invite us to ask ourselves what it means to live in a way that our faith will be known by how we tangibly interact with the world. And it starts here. It starts with Paul and his long, extended metaphor about fruit and his letter to a church in Galatia. In Galatians, Paul is talking to a group of people who are trying something new. They're trying to build a new faith community centered around Christ, but they're coming from different backgrounds. Some of them are Jewish and some of them are Gentiles, and they've all got questions about the rules. They want to know what the parameters of their faith should look like, how they should participate in church life, and how they should interact with one another. And they need some clarity about what guidelines are theirs to follow. And with today's verses, Paul is telling them that yes, guidelines are important and valuable, and they have carried us through generations. But if you're only thinking about the rules, if you're only thinking about the rules, then you are missing the point entirely. The point of all of this, the point of our effort here in community, is to shape and craft ourselves in a way where love is made visible in the world. It's as if Paul is saying to them, okay, so you want a rule? Great, here is a rule. Love one another. Love your neighbor as yourself. He says it's the whole law summed up in a single commandment. It's the whole law summed up in a single commandment, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And I think Paul knows that too. That he can't just say, work on loving each other and call it a day, because even after telling the church, love, it's the whole point, immediately he proceeds by saying, oh, and also, just in case, here's some things not to do. Don't be immoral or impure or debaucherous, and try your best to stay away from sorcery. And while you're at it, you should probably avoid envy and strife and drunken carousing, amongst a whole host of other things. And the part of my brain that thinks only in black and white loves this. The part of me that clings to rigid, hard, and fast binary rules. The part of me that volunteered to be the referee in dodgeball in middle school rather than actually playing on more than one occasion. That part of me would be fine if Paul's letter to the church in Galatia ended here. But it doesn't. Paul gives us a list of don'ts. So I assume that we would also get a list of do's. But instead of commands for behavior, Paul gives us attributes. He gives us the fruits. He tells us that we can know when we are walking in lockstep with Jesus, when what is growing out of our lives is love and joy and peace and patience and kindness, generosity, faithfulness, and self-control. He tells us what fruit we will see. But he doesn't give us specific instructions for exactly how to grow them. I wonder if this is because Paul knows that what was true for this church is also true for us today. That love looks and feels and is expressed differently for each one of us. For some of us, love is best felt when we are able to lock eyes with someone over a cup of coffee and tell them every single detail of what we have seen this week and how it has made us feel and what we just need to vent about. And for some of us, the experience of being deeply listened to is the greatest form of love. For others, having to talk at length about our lives feels like the worst way to spend a Friday morning. And our love is better expressed over a keyboard, in writing a letter to a congressional representative saying, these people who live next to me, they are my neighbors. They are beloved members of this community, and I do not want them to go anywhere. How can I help them? That is love. The action of love manifests itself in so many different ways. And the same is likely true for this church in Galatia trying something new. Some of them were coming from a background where sacred religious rituals were the rhythms they had lived all of their days by. And at the very same time, in the very same place, others were trying to figure out what being a part of a committed spiritual community looked like for the very first time in their lives. Both things were happening, and loving both of them exactly where they were probably looked really physically different. Some might have needed the patient kind of love that stood by them as they watched the parameters of their beloved tradition change, as they watched what they knew take on a different shape, as they invited more and more people from more and more backgrounds to come along in community with them. Others likely wanted to move more quickly, to build something that looked radically different from what they had done before, and loving them well likely meant matching their excitement and saying to them, share your dreams for the future with me so that I may dream like that too. Both things are true, both things are love. And this church, like any church, was one where there were as many different views on how things should go as there were people who gathered for worship. And yet, amongst so much difference, Paul offers to them not a unifying vision of conformity, but one of fruitfulness. He doesn't ask them to look the same. He doesn't ask them to love or be loved the same. He doesn't ask them to serve others the exact same way. He doesn't give them a prescriptive to-do list. Instead, he is pointing to the fruit of the Spirit. He is pointing to the evidence of God's work amongst them and how they might notice it. He is saying, when you look around, when you look at this community, what do you see growing? Are we bearing a fruit that will last? Are we living in a way that when all is said and done, love is what remains? He's not only telling them that these fruits are what they might be recognized as Christians in the world, he is also reminding them that these are the ways that they will be remembered. And I think the same is true for us today. I can't think of a single tombstone in all of my years that I have ever read that has said, she avoided sorcery when presented with the opportunity to engage in it. I have never seen an obituary that says he followed the rules of the tax code perfectly. Which is not to say that these aren't important things, but it is to say that I have read countless obituaries that have spoken these words. She was kind. They were so patient. In all of his days, he was so loving. These are the fruits. And how we live them out will mark how we are remembered by every person we encounter. Living in a way that love is what remains doesn't mean getting it perfect every time. It means showing up day after day and letting the fruit of the Spirit take root and grow in whatever small, imperfect ways it can. It looks like the moments when patience wins out over frustration, when gentleness finds a way into a hard conversation, when a simple act of kindness that no one around you notices changes the course of just one person's day. Because in the end, when our story is told, the hope is that it will be a story not of perfect execution of the task of our lives, but of imperfect, real, and honest love that made a difference for someone. It's not about the size of the fruit we bear, but about the fact that we keep showing up, that we keep tending the gardens of our lives, and that we trust that God can make something beautiful of whatever we have to offer. That is a story worth living. Friends, it is the simplest sermon you will hear. It is the simplest one Paul offers us in all of his writing. Love is what you will be remembered by. It is the whole law summed up in a single commandment. Go and love. Thanks be to God, and amen.